This is a Security Weekly production. Welcome, everyone, to Stogie Geeks News. This is April 22nd, 2016, and I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined on the lines via Skype by Mr. Will Cooper. Welcome, Will.
Hey, Paul. How's it going today?
It's going fantastic. What's going on in the world of cigars today?
Well, I'll tell you what. Usually a company that's kind of quiet and doesn't do a lot of releases has been very active lately, and that's Padrón Cigars. We reported on last week. We talked about the Hermoso extension to the 1964 anniversary line, the 4-inch short stubby cigar. Now comes word there's two line extensions coming to Padrón Dámaso. They have a number 32, which is a 5.5 by 52 Parejo, kind of a larger Robusto, and then they have a number 34, which is a 6 by 52 Bellicoso.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, so the line is there, with all, and I know it's been a very polarizing line for a lot of people, but Padrón's moving ahead to really market this line right now.
I think it gets better with age.
You said that, yeah.
In my opinion, they are smoking a lot better, but it does have a very polarizing like flavor characteristic to it that I can see like people either love it or they don't care for it. With me being the cigar reviewer, it's something that is certainly growing on me, and I do find as I let them rest, they get a lot better with age.
Yeah, I know we talked about that on one of the show. Now, there's been some talk, and I don't like getting into the rumor, but I think this is worth mentioning a little, that some retailers have been reporting that the blend is different. I guess I'll go back to our philosophy that the blend is going to be different because they're blending. Padrón, it blends to a size, is how they've traditionally done things. So I don't think I'm not putting much into that, but I haven't smoked these yet, so I can't say how different they are.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to try the Bellicoso. I'm curious to see how it does now because that format is so different,
Me too, yeah. A rounded, they've never done a rounded Bellicoso before.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's what I think what's real interesting. It's something completely different that we've seen from Padrón.
And we got some big news this week from JD, our good friend at Drewe Estate. This is the hot story this week.
Wow, what a big story. And so Jonathan Drewe is launching Jon Drewe Brands, which basically it's a new company. It's focused on spirits, craft beverages, and food. Jonathan's going to be involved in that company, but he is not leaving Drewe Estate. He's going to be involved with Drewe Estate too. Jonathan's role's evolved, I think, since the acquisition from Swisher. So he's moved, I think, from running more of the day-to-day operations of the company to basically he's become more of a brand ambassador. He works on special projects with them. Still has an active role in Drewe Estate, but he's probably not dealing with the minutiae of from an operations standpoint. So it's probably affording him some time. This is something he's been wanting to do for a while, so it's not a surprise here.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's got some spirits that are coming out. Brixton Mash Destroyer, which is a mashup between Kentucky bourbon and Florida rum. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
And then he's got a straight rum coming out called Dovetail Rum.
Yep.
And then a Jon Drewe Rye.
Yep. I thought this was when I looked at this, right, I said, he's building this company and he's using the model he had with Drewe Estate. He's got that traditional, for example, with the rum, right? So he's got that Dovetail Rum, looking at that from the traditional end. And then he's kind of going with this mashup, which is the Brixton Mash Destroyer, which is he's basically taking Kentucky bourbon and rum and he's kind of creating something. So that's kind of what he does with you could think about some of the more non-traditional stuff he's done with Drewe Estate, like with Kentucky Friar Cured and Infused. So I noticed he's kind of taken that model and he's now moved it into what he's doing with the spirits, which I think is really good. And then, it's got all the Drewe Estate style art on this thing. So, and from what I've, when the press release came out, he's got the full blessings of Drewe Estate with this as well. So this is it's very clear that this is probably going to be a strong partnership. But they're not talking about making pairings or anything. They're talking about this is going to be kind of a standalone company, more or less.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because I was immediately thinking how these spirits would pair with cigars and how they're going to drink on their own and both in a cocktail. along with a cigar. And rye can be a very deceiving thing. Rye, a lot of times, has a lot of spice to it. So, I'll pair that with a spicier cigar or sometimes a sweeter cigar, right? But some rye is so smooth. You could drink it like on with an ice ball with just the rye, and it's very smooth. Or you can use it in an old fashioned as well. So I'm curious to get my hands on these and do some mixology with them and report back.
Yeah, I mean, the number one question we've been getting is where can I buy this? As soon as we know, we'll tell you on that because I think this is something that's really worth watching. I know we'll be watching it closely from the cigar end as well.
It can be tough to buy spirits online. Some states you can't, and shipping is really expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. So
when I've had to source things that are spirits that are somewhat special, I pay like an arm and a leg for them, and it's not something I would do on a regular basis. You want spirits to be in your local liquor store because it's just much easier and much cheaper to purchase them that way.
That's a good point. Just another point on this too is the Jon Drewe brand products are going to be basically they're going to be what's called a non-distiller producer, meaning that they're sourcing the alcohol components externally. So kind of think of that kind of is they're not doing the distilling right now.
Right.
So I don't know if that's something they're going to go into or not.
Well, he did say that the rye was aged for 4 years in oak barrels from a distillery in Canada.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's a good amount of age for a rye. And for those that don't know, once it hits the glass bottle, it stops aging. It's not like cigars. So it stops aging once it hits that glass.
Wow. Very interesting.
The FDA has some big news on this front, Will. This was a big story in as far as the FDA front, and it's not so much about the FDA, but more about the House Appropriations Committee, which it's really kind of like the budgeting aspect for the House, right? House Representatives.
Right. So basically, when the government wants to do one of their regulatory programs, and it's like this in my day job, any program that's put in place, it's got to be paid for. Okay. So either it's going to be paid for externally, it's paid for internally. Well, in this case, they got to figure out how they're going to pay for this thing. So that's where the Appropriations Committee comes in for agriculture. And in this case, we're talking about the FDA regulations that have been that haven't been issued yet, but we know are coming. So there's been some activity where basically the House Appropriations Committee for Agriculture, which the FDA falls under, there was a draft put in that basically exempted premium cigars from FDA regulation.
So basically, this is the House of Representatives saying we're not going to approve funding for the FDA to regulate premium cigars.
Correct.
Okay. That's the way I understood it too.
Right.
Yeah.
So last week, and we had Glenn Loop on the show, it was just post when this language was proposed.
Right. And now it's approved in a 34-14 vote.
It's been approved by
defeated.
By the committee.
The amendment was defeated?
No, not exactly. No.
Oh.
So here's what happened. We'll talk about the amendment in a second. So what happened is that language now has to go into a big appropriations bill, the overall one. Okay. Now, when it went into the overall appropriations bill, there was a representative from Connecticut named Rosa DeLauro, who basically said, take that out. She wanted to take it out. So she wanted to give the FDA funding to regulate premium cigars. Right. She didn't want that language in there.
And she's representing Connecticut, who is a state that is involved and gets revenue from premium handmade cigars.
Yeah, I mean, you think about tobacco farms in the United States, Connecticut has got to be at the top of the list.
Absolutely.
And now there's great retailers in Connecticut. My friend Kevin at Buttheads is there. Right. Nick Malillo, our friend Nick Malillo's.
They must be furious right now.
Yeah. Well, the good news that was what was defeated.
That's what was defeated. Okay. Well, that's good.
So that was a big win. It was a win. We're not home yet. This has still got to be voted on by the House of Representatives, and then the same thing's got to happen on the Senate. And there's some concerns on the Senate end right now. If you listen to show 182 with Glenn Loop, he'll kind of make that clear.
Right.
There's some very, very big anti-tobacco factions that are
he kind of made it sound like this was an easier win, but as this moves forward, it's not going to be as an easy of a win as it moves through into the Senate.
Yeah, and I'll kind of just speak real clear here. The cigar industry needed some wins. Now, this is not the championship. We haven't won the championship,
right?
But we need some wins here. This was a win, but we can't rest on our laurels either.
Well, and I think it's good too that the Representative Delora from Connecticut kind of showed her cards. And if you're in Connecticut, I would encourage you to continue to educate and do all the activism that you can to educate your representatives about the tobacco industry, especially in a state like Connecticut. So,
and I think you got to give credit to the CRA, the IPCPR, the CAA, for the education process. I know last year the omnibus thing was defeated; it didn't make it in. But from what I understand, everyone thought that was a long shot to begin with. Mm-hmm. But here, that 34 this was not a close vote. That was beaten by 20 votes on that committee. That's a good statement here.
Good win. Good win.
Yep.
Glad you ended on some good news on the FDA front.
I hate talking about FDA in the news, but this was
an important one. Yeah,
exactly.
This is an important one.
Yep.
Well, thanks for watching Stogie Geeks News. Make sure you check out StogieGeeks.com for a complete archive of all the shows and our live show every Monday night starting on May 9th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And visit cigar-group.com for all the latest cigar news and reviews. Thanks for watching.